It's another lovely Sunday of action. Hello and thank you for joining us on Journalist Hangout on Sunday. I'm Ayodele Uzubaku. Today on the program, group tells defense minister to clear his name over $1 billion arms procurement controversy. Boko Haram attacks hometown of Inspector General of Police as kidnapped Kaduna College of Forestry students spent 45 days in captivities. Nigerians express concern over the country's rising debt profile as the Senate approves President Buhari's request for $2.69 billion loan. And later on the show, Journalist Hangout Weekend Special is on lingering blackout in Borno State caused by Boko Haram insurgents. I'll be hanging out with Babajide Kolade Otitoju and Adewale Adeoye. So if you're ready, thank you for joining us again. Let's begin today's edition. It is said that every day is for the thief, but one day is for the owner. That one day has come for popular Nollywood actor Olariwaju James, popularly known as Baba Ijesha, who is alleged to have defiled a 14-year-old girl for 7 years. The Lagos State Police Command arrested the 48-year-old after he was caught on CCTV assaulting the victim. Evil from the unexpected. Babajide, this is somebody that is meant to be a role model, somebody that is meant to be a shining light. Baba Ijesha.
Yes, it's extremely shameful that he has put himself in this mess. I'm sure that many Nigerians must have been caught, surprised that this fellow could be involved in something like this, because he's one of the Yoruba artists that are well loved, you know, because of his funny nature and all that, and a lot of kids too, as you said, would want to be like him. But how does an adult have an itch for a little girl?
From 7-year-old.
Yes. Look at the difference.
48.
This man is 48 years.
So 41
There's
years
a difference of 38 years or so between them. Why? I mean, he's 34 years. The difference is 34 years between them. And you're sleeping with that kind of person. The story was that he dragged the girl to the kitchen where the CCTV camera was not installed.
Was installed?
No,
okay.
He dragged her out of the room to a kitchen, to the kitchen where the thing was not installed.
Okay.
You know, but the mother of the victims began to race quickly to her house and caught him in action. So they must have planned for him.
For 7
and he didn't know that there was a plan.
For 7 horrible years.
Yes.
Of that girl.
7 horrible years of an extraordinary itch. 7 years of madness. To have an itch, to have a kick for a girl that young is extraordinary madness in my view. I don't know what has come over some of our men.
Well, this is not normal. It's not normal.
It's a very unfortunate incident. I used to be a fan of Baba Ijesha, and I used to respect him a lot until I heard about this story. A 14-year-old girl cannot give informed consent. She doesn't understand what is involved. She's not actually biologically developed enough, you know, to have that kind of relationship. So, and there are also so many risks associated. Health risk,
Yes.
you know, sexually transmitted diseases, and then the trauma that you are going to impose on this lady in terms of her sociological behavior in future years is something that can never go
mentally
away.
balanced.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, so I think the Baba Ijesha exploited an opportunity given to him he should have seen himself as a role model to that little child, to build the child up in terms of looking up to him as a role model. But unfortunately, he decided to exploit this lady. With the evidence we have, I think it will be very difficult. I mean, the evidence in public space. There are some cases you say, okay, let us wait for how the court is going to decide. We should not pass judgment, but with a CCTV camera, you know, I think...
He's even said to have phone doctor.
Yes, you know, as confessed. So I think it's a very bad case for him. And I think what the woman did, the custodian of the lady, what he did was very good, because I understand she also connected the CCTV to her phone.
Yes.
So she was monitoring the whole development. It tells us that we need to be very smart, especially when you have a female child, you know, and you can't trust anybody, no matter how close that person you think, you know, he is to your family.
Yes.
We need to be more careful. This thing has been going on for 7 years without the knowledge of anybody. Who knows how many homes that are passing those kind of
I think for Baba Jesha, this is like a turning point in his career, because people they've been coming out, women groups, everybody, they've been coming out to say no.
He has to go to jail.
That this guy must go to jail. He must actually be served justice.
Yes, that's the point. There are so many rape cases in our country, but only few convictions are secured. You can imagine in 2 years, we are securing less than 80 convictions across the country. Just 80 convictions in 2 years.
There are a lot of
families come in, families will say, no, let us settle out of court, this and that. You know, those things, we shouldn't be settling these matters out of court. If we do not jail people, if we do not make examples of people, these guys will continue to run riots in our country. Look at the governor of Kaduna State now. He is already talking about surgical castration. You know, believing that with that it will no longer. I mean, at least because some of them are serial offenders. I can understand why Erufai is thinking that way. Some of them have been arrested, and arrested. So, but if surgical castration gets done, you won't even have that kick. That itch will not be there.
All right, moving on now. The more the fight to end the insecurity across Nigeria persists, the more Nigerians raise questions about the $1 billion released in April 2018 for procurement of arms to execute the war. As the controversy and probe by National Assembly rage, a group, the Coalition for Truth and Justice, has called on the Minister of Defense, Magashi, to come out and clear his name on the issue. The group said Magashi should open up on how the Ministry of Defense spent the funds to purchase the arms in the spirit of transparency and accountability. So, will he not? Gentlemen, Jide, this morning, when it was requested from the National Assembly in 2018, I remember vividly, $1 billion, a lot of public outcry, a lot of people say, why do you want to borrow, why do you want to? So, but the federal government had to justify the reason why we needed $1 billion, you know, to procure some of these hardwares for the military. Right now, 3 years down the line, I don't think we have proper a kind of account of how the money was disbursed and what they procured with the money, because the National Assembly has been doing a lot of drilling to just unearth how this $1 billion was actually disbursed.
Well, I think it's a tragedy that in our country we treat accountability with so much levity. So much levity. And you ask yourself, why? Why? Because in many cases, these people in government even have a good case. In many cases, it's not as if they've stolen money. All that they need to do is just come clean. Come clean. Let Nigerians see what you are doing. There was a time when I think the finance ministry, you know, during Okonjo-Iweala last time, will publish the details of expenditure in national newspapers. This is the sort of accountability that we want. Because everyone knows that, look, so much money meant for buying weapons get stolen from regime to regime. It's not a question of, oh, it only happened during one regime. No, there's no guarantee that even under this regime, it's not happening. But to show clearly that you are different, the ideal thing to do is to say, okay, we got so amount of money from the Ministry of Finance to buy so critical weapons. This is what we did with the money. This is the details. These are the details of the contract. These are the weapons procured. This was the time the weapons were delivered. Because the truth is, I could see clearly that even under this new minister, General Magashi, some weapons have been bought, including MRAPs, APCs, phantom APCs, even anti-aircraft guns and others. As early as 2020 February, contract sealed to deliver. And all these contracts, there's usually a timeline within which the contractor must deliver. In fact, if the contractor delivers it late, there is a penal fee that the contractor has to pay. We've been leaning in the direction of Eastern Europe because we want to get those weapons out as quickly as possible.
Yes.
And in some cases, or I can even say in many cases, we are not even buying brand new equipment. We've had to buy even brand second-hand aircraft. We've had to buy second-hand weapons, including even armor tanks.
Just to get something else.
Now, in this case, government at a point said, no, we do not need the T-90 second generation main battle tank. Let us go for MRAPs. And they decided to go for MRAPs. Now, I do not subscribe to the idea of, oh, bring Brate, bring Sadiq, and the rest of them service chiefs, because I know that it is the Ministry of Defense that buys weapons on behalf of the services. Now, that is not saying that, oh, service chiefs will not, if there's any deal that they are completely shut out. But what the point that I'm making, because no one can say that with finality, this is Nigeria, where people get carried along so that there won't be noise. Now, the point that I'm making is, it is the Ministry of Defense that buys weapons on behalf of the services, the Navy, even the Defense Intelligence Agency. They also supply them weapons, and they were part of this contract. So the ministry has a PAMSEC. It is that PAMSEC that signs these deals on behalf of the Nigerian state. So it's not a question of, oh, go and bring Burate, go and bring Sadiq. There's a PAMSEC who should be able to answer questions from the National Assembly in the course of their investigations. Whether Burate shows up or not, whether Sadiq or Ibas is available or not, the PAMSEC is there. The Director of Bureau of Public Procurement is there. These are the people that we need to ask them questions, and they are always there. So if occasional warrants inviting the service chiefs, the former service chiefs, we would then see a need to bring them in. Asking the new Chief of Army Staff, asking him questions about this, you know that he has little or nothing to say. I am saying that these public servants are the people, they have the documents, they sign the deals on behalf of the Nigerian state, and they are the people that we should ask these salient questions. Were these things delivered? Because they, as part of the deal, even the delivery dates will be indicated. All of the things that must come with it will be indicated, including spares, even spare keys. So what have these people got to say. The National Assembly should be looking in the direction of PAMSEC, the Ministry of Defense, Director, Public Procurement, to let us know whether these weapons were bought, were they delivered, or some of them are still hanging somewhere.
Well, as a young boy, then anytime I want to look, anytime I'm looking through the breakdown of the budget, it's all defense number one. Yeah. Defense number one. Since Boko Haram even came, even before Boko Haram, so we get a situation whereby Nigerian we budget heavily for defense in Nigeria, but because of this Boko Haram uprising now, some of us we've seen through it now that look, those monies, those things that have been budgeted over time, it might not be properly accounted for because they're always talking about their shortage in terms of ammunition.
It's a very unfortunate thing that history is repeating itself. Because in 2015, when President Buhari came, the first thing he did was one of the first things he did was to set up the Presidential Investigation Committee
Armed procurement.
On armed procurement, and discovered that $2.2 billion could not be accounted for. And this led to the arrest of Colonel Dasuki. And up to now, the case is yet to be totally resolved. Now, the same government is still in power, and we are hearing almost a similar story. And this story is not coming from newspapers. It's coming from an insider, the National Security Advisor. So there should be some level of truth in what the NSA said. And I think, like Babagide said, whether the defense minister wants to keep himself clean or whatever, he is now in the public domain. We have enough statements to work on that we need to find out what actually happened to these funds. Because you can't keep people fighting on the battlefield, without weapons. And you are hearing stories about, billions that cannot be accounted for. If you have relations that are fighting on battlefield, fighting against Boko Haram, you hear stories to even get anti-venom, tablets. They cannot get. They are suffering. Many have not been given their due allowance. So we can't have this kind of situation and you expect, the best from our soldiers that are fighting on the field. So I think we have thrown a challenge to the presidency. We need to investigate this issue thoroughly. And like Babagide said, I'm quite sure there is most likely that so many people are involved, even beyond the Minister of Defense. But I think this issue should not be swept under the carpet, unless we want to be made to believe that this government is not different from the kind of the mess that he met when he came in 2015. So we are anxious to see how this case is going to be probed, how these funds will be recovered, and those that are involved, for all of them to be made to be accountable to the public. Okay.
We have Larry Suraj, a Lagos-based security and anti-corruption expert, joining us. Larry K.
How are you doing? Good morning. Afternoon. Right?
Let me first say congratulations to you. Last month, Larry K was 50 last month.
You were not there.
Now, $1 billion. We're talking about $1 billion. 2 years, 3 years down the line, it has not been accounted for. What do you make of this?
I think apologies to, some of us in the media and also in the civil society. We really just wait for some of these, screaming headlines before we get involved. And that is what the politicians have perfected, such that, they tell themselves within their circle, never mind, they will only shout, cry, and also wail about it for like 2 weeks. After that, they forget about it, and that is how they continue, or the mindset that assists them in the continuation of perpetuating this kind of, heinous crime against the people, the country, and also even our reputation outside here. It is not just about $1 billion. I mean, what has been spent in the security circle is not just $1 billion. We need to go back and look at the budget. Even when we don't have Boko Haram, like Mr. Adeoye said, we've always had this huge budgetary provision for the defense ministry, and you don't have anything on ground to show for it. The current Minister of Defense, if you remember, was also accused of having about a $550,000 in his account when he was even commandant under the former late General Sonny Abacha. That was stashed abroad, and some of that money was meant to be recovered, and he was also given like a wrist slap to still take and also control about $150,000 under President Obasanjo. So when you now have this case, it is certain that quite a number of them would continue with this trend without us, ensuring the eternal vigilance that is required for us to change the system. The politicians will not change it. All of them are potential aspirants to the opportunity to get this money once they get into office. And that is why they don't change. It is just for us as civil society and media to ensure that we change the system and put the politicians on their toes. I can only hope that this $1 billion will lead us to several other things that we can also unravel from the development. We're already seeing some of the proceeds of crime where they are actually hidden and domiciled. I mean, 13 known security officers have about 216 properties in Dubai. This is where you would see quite a number of the money going to. The $1 billion and the rest either going to places like Dubai, the UK, and the US, where they go to buy properties and also start up businesses.
Now, we always chase shadows in the name of trying to unravel cases of corruption in our country, especially the National Assembly. Are you impressed with the way the National Assembly has gone about investigating this particular case, given the heated exchange that they had with the new Chief of Army Staff?
I mean, it is very ludicrous, and I felt ashamed, for the members of the National Assembly that were also seated, at that hearing with the Chief of Staff. For me, it is actually a disaster. It shows the level of, incompetence that pervades the National Assembly. So there was a $1 billion missing 3 years down the line. That same National Assembly actually screened and also approved the appointment of the principal actors in the defense sector, the former Chief of Army, Defense, Navy, and Air Force. And they consider them worthy of being ambassador of Nigeria. No question was raised about this issue. Even when the National Security Advisor also raised the issue, nothing was done. They have not also been called. You are calling somebody who has just come into office to come and account for that without holding forth for the Chief of Army Staff. I think it is actually irresponsible on the part of the National Assembly to have not invited the Minister of Defense and the principal actors who were the security chiefs during the period under consideration to give account of what has transpired during their stewardship in that position than just going in the circus of just entertaining the public and bringing the new man to, and he told them, I mean, without, for me, I think there's sort of some individuals that would need to confront these our characters in the National Assembly. If you know the right people to call, they are alive, they are not dead. They are even still public office holders by virtue of being ambassadors. So the National Assembly should have started with them. And based on their appearances and submission, the new Chief of Staff, the Chief of Army Staff, can then be invited to either corroborate or dispute some of the claims that will be made by the immediate past security chiefs. For me, it is just an entertainment, and it is distraction, and it's more or less like complicit on the part of the National Assembly.
What do you have a situation whereby anything that has to do with military spending, budget funding for defense, it's always shredded in secrecy somehow. Apart from, we know that they took $1 billion, but when they disburse it, they do anything, you know, you don't have it on, you know, pages of newspapers that this is what we've extended and everything. And if you challenge this, they said for national security reason, we're not meant to disclose this thing. Why do you think we have situation like that when it comes to military?
No, it is rather unfortunate. It is not about the military. It is the complicity of the National Assembly. There's no law that protects the National Assembly, I mean the military or the defense, from revealing and also accounting for all the monies appropriated by the National Assembly. The strategy of the defense or our military might not be disclosed, you know, to the public, but the amount that is given, I mean, it's given for a purpose. And that is why you submit the budget to the National Assembly for appropriation. Every appropriation must be subject to accountability. That was why the president could afford to set up the panel to investigate what happened, you know, with the past regime with respect to procurement. So it is not in any way legally binding that you wouldn't have to reveal, you know, or account for the monies that are allocated for what you do. That is number one. Number two, you can see that it is gone. We all started, you know, hearing on this with reference to the defense, but it's already gone beyond defense to NNPC, CBN, and other subsidiaries and NNPC, where you don't even hear anything about, you know, the appropriation in the budget. You only just get to know about the lump sum that goes to them, and there's no element of you know, accountability. But because the National Assembly is complicit, they get their share of the loot, so they don't hold them to account. They also just look for that form of excuse to justify, you know, the secrecy that is associated with the mismanagement of the funds.
Now, you just reminded me of something that's going on in our country. The NNPC, there is no appropriation for subsidy in the budget, but the NNPC on its own continues to deduct from crude oil sales, deduct money from crude oil sales to pay subsidy. How is this allowed to go on? Shouldn't there be a way to stop NNPC from deciding on its own what should go for subsidy and be taking money by itself without being money not appropriated? Just taking it. Who supervises them? Who tells them, no, you've taken beyond what you should take?
I mean, it's an illegal act. It is an unconstitutional act. And the body, I mean, the whole, and I must confess, this is not actually being heard on the National Assembly, but we just need to tell it at its seat. It must be told that the whole problem of accountability starts actually and ends with the National Assembly. Because the National Assembly knows that no amount of money can be spent by the executive without the appropriation of the National Assembly. So in such situation where an agency, I mean just an agency, irrespective of the president being the minister or whatever, it is just an agency having to spend. And the question also goes to the fact that every fund generated by all the agencies with the advent of the TSA is expected to have gone to the federation account of the country. And that money going to federation account belongs to the federal, the state, and the local government. So NNPC does not even have the power to have spent on its own such funds that were generated in the name of the Federation of Nigeria. And that is what happens with the sale of the natural resources, oil and gas, gold, and all the rest of that. So for the national, the NNPC, to commit such, very serious infraction of the Constitution, the National Assembly should have by now either called for the removal of the NNPC Group Managing Director, should have invited all the previous ones that are associated with such unconstitutional acts, and where the president or the executive refuses to actually go ahead to implement the resolution of the National Assembly, the National Assembly by now should be in court, to enforce and assert its power. But it's unfortunate that when the Assembly is such in a compromising position, it becomes very difficult for it to even enforce any constitutional provision in such a vulnerable circumstances that it has also positioned itself. So it is not just by the whims and caprices of the National Assembly or the executive, it is also by the failure of the National Assembly.
Well,
yeah, your group recently came out with a report, an investigative report, that 13 security chiefs are linked to about 216 assets out of 800 illicit assets in UK and UAE. Are we getting enough bilateral cooperation from United Kingdom and United Arab Emirates in terms of attempt to retrieve back these illicit funds?
Yeah, I think the UK is gradually responding to the pressure, either willingly or unwillingly. It is responding to the pressure that is associated with the disgraceful acts of our citizens and security officials, and also politically exposed persons who are, taking the money of the country and converting them into assets or even cash in their countries. That is with respect to UK, and that is also requiring that we as citizens and also country affected will need to also engage some of the provisions of the UK system, the unexplained wealth order, that requires that people should come and explain the source of their assets that is also considered to be above £50,000. But it's a function of how much of the information are we able to provide to the system and also challenge them to act on those information. The case with the UAE is such a very pathetic one. Though Nigeria already signed the mutual legal assistance on criminal matters with the UAE, about 3 of those laws under this current regime, including the recovery of assets, beyond even the commitments that the countries have under the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, called OCAC, around the issue of asset recovery and repatriation. The UAE has really not been forthcoming, and unfortunately, the UAE has continued really to allow the private sector within its property market to attract many of these toxic funds. That is why it is possible to be talking about, about 800 properties of politically exposed persons, proxies, and the rest of that. We had a very unfortunate experience while actually conducting the research, and myself and the researcher were in UAE for the UN conference, and we decided to do some kinds of undercover, investigation about these assets. And we met some of the property managers, at one of the major big malls in Dubai, and realizing that we're Nigeria, they were actually very enthusiastic that they were going to do business, and we also pretended to be interested in going ahead with investing within the UAE system, also having some of our money in Nigeria. And we were fully assured that if we can get about $1 million investment there, we would be given a golden visa. They're not bothered about how we're going to get it. That is not the most shocking aspect.
Yes,
the most,
thank you.
Shocking aspect was the fact that they are ready to even assist us to move the money to UAE. Yeah. Without going through the financial system here. So for us, it is really very sad.
Larry, I want to thank you, Larry Suraj. Larry Suraj is security expert and anti-corruption crusader. And I can confirm that as you are getting to Dubai, if you go into Dubai, Emirates or whatever, they will just lay siege. They are at the airports. They are ready. They will call you. They will take your name. They will call you everything and
ask you to go and buy property.
Yes, there's a meeting they will call, and when you attend that meeting, they know that an average Nigerian is rich.
They will give you a lavish reception.
Reception at the meeting
that will clearly turn your head.
Yeah, so they will now start their proposal.
Even if you are visiting as a family, they will host you all in a manner that even your children will be happy. You see, it's unfortunate that we are in this kind of mess. We can't find the funds to provide fantastic governance, to provide the needs, the basic needs of our people. But there's so much that gets stolen because the system permits so much to be stolen. Until we make it extremely difficult for people to get away with corruption, we cannot develop as a country. For now, we are just, it's like
these countries,
they
are talking to a wall.
They will collaborate with them because they know that such investments will make their own country greater. I mean, who does not want foreign investment? Foreign direct investment is one of the means by which a country has foreign exchange. So, of course, they will be interested in that. But our own system must make it extremely, if not impregnable, for people to be able to steal public funds. In some countries, that is already in place. You talk about countries like Norway and the rest of them, they are able to do so much for the people. Because if people know that they can't escape paying their taxes, if you fail to pay, the punishment is worse than manslaughter. The punishment that you get for manslaughter. But the state will do its own best, will do its best for you. But in Nigeria, what do we have? You drill your own borehole. In fact, the street leading to your house, sometimes you are the one who will even tar the road. There's little that government, so much gets stolen from what belongs to all of us. Going back to what we were saying, look, contracts were awarded. Contracts were awarded for all kinds of weapons that the army requires, including 60 Legion MRAP. That's the brand of MRAP, Legion MRAP, and other things. The question is, have they been delivered? I'm saying that is what the National Assembly should be doing. The National Assembly should invite the Minister of Defense, invite the PAMSEC, and everyone involved. Because there were weapons that were bought in 2018 during the time of the former Minister of Defense. But the public servants can be invited because they are the people who stand representing the Nigerian state in ensuring that those deals are done. And there's usually certificate of delivery, for these weapons. Were those certificates of delivery delivered to the contractor? So this thing needs to be thoroughly investigated.
Larry, Wale, like what Larry said, even these people, they encourage us. There was a time that I went to a place they called the Palms. And the Palms in Dubai, and there was that was my first time of going to a 7-star hotel, and I saw the picture of this Nigerian that owned a 7-star hotel, and I look, wow, we had a kind of excursion, like 20 minutes around the hotel, see our money.
I think the most striking thing Suraj said, was that those people said even if you cannot bring out the money from Nigeria, they will help you to bring the money. If you can have about $1 million from Nigeria to Dubai, not passing through the banking system. That means the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit cannot even discover that money. And
if you have $1 million,
if you have money and want to go and invest,
if your problem is moving,
it means they can move it in portfolio. Of course, are diplomatic goods and take it to Dubai. So is that bad? And it boils down to the fact that, look, you can't just be begging, countries that are keeping your funds all the time. The best thing is to ensure that the money does not leave Nigeria. Is to ensure that your funds are not stolen at all. Once they are stolen, to get it back is just by luck.
All right, we'll go for this breather. When we come back, we'll talk more. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. It's still Journalist Hangout on Sunday. 120-minute bumper-packed program of news and current affairs issues. Now, I still have Babajide Kolade Otitoju in the house and Wale Adeoye. Like some former security chiefs, Nigeria's acting Inspector General of Police, Usman Akali, got his own slap on the face regarding Boko Haram insurgency. The insurgents attacked his own village, own town in Gaidam, that's Yobe State, on Friday, before fighter jets emerged to push them back. Meanwhile, it is still a long way to freedom for the remaining abducted students of the Federal College of Forestry Mechanization, Afaka, Kaduna, who have now spent 45 days in captivity. Babajide, let's deal with this. The acting Inspector General of Police first. Yobe, outside Borno State, Yobe is the next hottest. Yeah. And over time, the Boko Haram, they've struck at Yobe, I think, 4 or 5 times this year.
Gaidam and Babangida are 2 towns that they attack repeatedly, and they are very close to the border with Niger. Those 2 towns are close to the border with Niger. There are Boko Haram cells inside Niger Republic. Sometimes when you chase them, they just go into Niger. And the truth is, these communities, the border posts are so loose that people can just go in and out. So they found that area a place of interest. Occasionally they will come in, steal people's food, steal people's medicines, and then go back. They've attacked Gaidam. I can't count how many times that Gaidam has been attacked. Even when, Gaidam is the hometown of the immediate past governor of the state. Even with him as governor, they were repeatedly attacking his hometown. So, Boko Haram does not really care whether someone is Inspector General of Police. If an area is close to areas where they have some level of preeminence or where they are strong, they would attack those places. They set ablaze the family house of the Chief of Army Staff, even during his time as Chief of Army Staff.
The former Chief of Army Staff?
Yes, Tukur Burate attacked this town. So it's not, and some villages too around this town they've been attacking. So it's, we just need to work harder to stop them, because last week there was an attack on Kamuya, also in Yobe State. You know, those communities are not far away from Borno State. So occasionally you will see them attack those communities. What they did in this case was to destroy the telco mast. After this, destroying the telco mast in the city and chased away by the Air Force, they came back. They came back last night to continue their attack on people. They simply allowed the jets to leave and they returned, because some of my friends in the village were calling. And I was hearing the sound of gunshots, and I was told that they were Boko Haram men shooting. So the people get terrorized from time to time in Babangida, in Gaidam. Even sometimes too, they try their best to even overrun Bunigeri and Buniyadi, but the army has always stood firm to make sure that they cannot penetrate those two towns in Yobe State, Bunigiri and Buniyadi. So we just have to continue to work hard. The armed forces must come together and deal with the threat that these guys represent. We don't have a choice.
Wale, when you see the activity of the insurgents in that area, most of the time I feel so bad for the people living in that area, you know. They'll be living in fear.
It's a very unfortunate development. Yobe and Borno State, they are the hotbeds of Boko Haram. They see those two states as their traditional homes. Jeddah was actually attacked this February, when they kidnapped 3 customs officers just this year. So this is the second time this year. And I don't think we can say because the IGs from there then, you must arrange a special security. The Boko Haram has no respect for, they have attacked the home of the former chief of staff, chief of army staff, Burata, and also Alex Bade, the former chief of air staff. So for me, it shows that we are here to defeat Boko Haram, so we should not deceive ourselves. And I think for a group that is still active to the extent of, trying to register its presence, where the IG comes from, shows that we still have a long way to go in terms of realizing and saying that we have won the war. So I think it's a challenge again that the fight against terrorism is not over. Unfortunately, when we are talking about Northeast, we also have to contend with the spread of pockets of terrorist groups, across the country. So it makes the problem to be more complex. So we need to rise up to this occasion and ensure that something is done, at least to restore hope in the heart of Nigerians.
And when you look at even the problem we are faced, in Borno, in that Sambisa area, to guard Yobe, to frequent attack to in Adamawa, it becomes very difficult to know where you're going to concentrate.
Well, yes, because those communities are not far apart, and in some cases they are united by the Sambisa forest. Because Sambisa forest covers some of those areas. It covers at least 7 states in our country, and the Sambisa forest runs through Yobe, it runs through Adama, runs through Borno. So all of these places are connected one way or the other. You see terrorists moving from the Goza area, to some parts of Adama, places like Michika, places like Madagali, places like Mubi. These are areas that are not so far away from Borno South. Places like Askira, Uba, Chibok, they are along that belt, and the terrorists have found a way to move from Damboa, which is a very dangerous part of Borno State, to Chibok. They still attack communities around Chibok, although they've not been able to overrun Chibok because it's well defended now by the troops, but there are communities not far away from Chibok that they go to. And then communities like in our local government, also in Borno South, they keep going to those places. And as I said some time ago, the Mandara Mountains is a refuge, a place of refuge for the Shekau faction of Boko Haram. And from the Mandara Mountains, they can come down, attack people in the Goza area, attack people in Laminkara, right up to even Lhasa, also in Borno South. So we have to have enough troops to defend all of these areas. A huge part of Goza, for example, remains undefended and therefore unsafe because those boys are there. As I said before, someone like Senator, the senator representing Borno South, Aliun Dume, has not been to his hometown, Ambagda, since 2014. You know, yes, he goes to Goza, but his village is Ambagda. The place is not safe enough. I said it, and many people thought I was merely making a noise, but he came out to admit that he has never had to go there, and that even to go to
in the last 7 years,
even to go to Goza, sometimes it's by helicopter that you have to go, because the fear of being kidnapped, the fear of sniper fire is there. So Boko Haram is giving us, they've not relaxed. In my view, they've not relaxed.
Well, they have like a willing tool in conscripting our youths, because most of them are unemployed, they are hungry, and that is now like a regular feature. So if you hear that, oh, there was an operation carried out and they killed so Boko Haram, you hear of these killings every day, but you just see that the more you kill them, the more they conscript our youths.
It shows that military solution is not the only and final solution to curbing terrorism. You have to deal with the breeding ground. You know, what are the incentives for terrorism? You know, poverty, corruption, unemployment. You know, so a lot of children out of school, no hope for them. So as long as those conditions are there, if you buy all the best military weapons in this world, if you don't tackle the socio-economic indices, you are still going to have a situation where people will be desperate to join any extremist group that they think meet their own aspiration in terms of what they perceive as a way to rebel against a state that they thinks does not take care of them.
It's day 45 for those students that were abducted, the Federal College of Forestry Mechanization, Afaka students. 45. These terrorists cannot and will not feed them well. You can't compare to the way they will be feeding them, if at all they are feeding them at all. And it's a very difficult situation for any parent.
It is, and my hope is that these children will come out alive. Already they've taken the lives of 3 of these persons. That's significant enough, because you can interpret what they've done in different ways. They must have done it to send the signal to the parents of those the remaining students to quickly come and pay ransom. And I'm sure that there will be a flurry of calls from parents to
double their efforts
to the agents of these bandits, trying to pay ransom, trying to get their wards out of harm's way. It's terrible that we have a situation in which we said we will not negotiate with bandits. Fine. But we must find a way to protect our people. We said we want our people to go to school. But we must make those schools safe. If we can't keep schools in northern Nigeria safe, nobody will feel like going to school. If school is supposed to be home away from home, it should be a place where every child or every student feels like going. But if people feel terrified about school, then it will only worsen the out of school syndrome that we have. I've seen people still talking about 13.5 million out of school children. That was statistics that was put together maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. Of course, it will be a lot worse now, given the insecurity that we are grappling with in different states. Kaduna especially now, they've made up their minds that because El-Rufai said they will not pay ransom, therefore they will blackmail him by constantly making his state unsafe. But the El-Rufai that we know is standing firm that he will not pay ransom. But of course,
Some people will argue that because he doesn't have his children there.
Other people will pay. For me, if I have a child there, I will do my best. I will do my best to get that child out of captivity. I won't wait for government to do that. So, and military efforts to crush these bandits must be seen. We are not seeing it. We are not seeing it. We can't continue to watch these people killing our people. We've got to crush them. That's what soldiers are for. If we cannot deal with bandits, how do we then respond to external aggression against our country? This should be like a litmus test for us.
This 45 days after, Wale.
I'm so sad. You wonder where and how these people, how do they sleep in the night? This time around, it's always very cold in the north, in the night. How do they get the essentials of life, food? How do they get medicine? There are guests among them who naturally pass through a biological cycle every month. How do they cope with that kind of difficult situation? So I'm not impressed by this attitude of we are not going to negotiate, because human lives are involved. If the Kaduna State government is not ready to negotiate, I don't think all of these students are all from Kaduna State. So maybe each state should identify these students where, if they are from their own state, the governors should take over that responsibility. This thing should not be led for Kaduna State government alone. Yeah. So the federal government can also come in to, negotiate so that they can get these people out of the claws of evil men.
We should even hear from the federal government that we are working with the Kaduna State government.
We shouldn't leave it for Kaduna State government alone.
They release this children.
Yes, they have killed some.
They've even left it to their parents, that the parents can't get them back.
It's quite unfortunate because it erodes the moral authority of the state. It gives the impression that the state can no longer protect us, and it's telling us that we should resort to self-help, which I don't think is the normal thing to do in a country where you have legitimate authorities. So the federal government should also do something. The senators representing where these students come from should rise up to the occasion. The members of the House of Rep representing their constituencies. Time is no longer on our side.
Talking about them. They are
not nobody talking about them. They are Nigerians. They are not being kept in a jail. They are being kept in our territory. America came all the way from thousands of miles away to come and pick one individual.
Yes.
You know, these people are kept on our land and we cannot do anything about it. It's so sad.
We have a caller on the line. Thank you for joining us. And please, yes, turn down the volume of your TV set.
Okay.
Go ahead with your contribution.
Yes, my question is to Babajide. Actually, I've heard him several times say some senators have not gone back to their villages or to their homes for the past 2015 or 2000. And these same senators have been senators some time ago, 2015, and now they are still senators at this time again. How do they vote for them? Who are those who voted for them to go back and become senators?
Very good question.
Thank you very much.
Very good question. People ask me this question even on Facebook. It was a very simple answer. In Borno State, the last election, if you are listening to me, in Borno State,
IDP.
Most of the elections were held in IDP camps. Borno State is not safe enough for people to do elections in their villages and towns. Most of the towns are not safe. You have a situation in Borno State where a local government, there are just 2 towns where people are living in. 2 towns. So where will people in the remaining places vote? So IDPs, you look at Borno North, for example, the people of Borno North, the IDPs voted in Monguno. Monguno is a place that is safe, although communities around it is not safe. But there are so many. The largest IDP camp in Borno State is in Monguno. Hundreds of thousands of people are there. They voted. Everyone will line up. This is your local government. You line up and they voted. So this is the situation. Apart from the state capital, in many local governments in Borno State, people are not living in them. Most of the people are either in IDP camps within Borno State, or they are in IDP camps in Niger Republic, or they are in IDP camps in Chad, or they are in IDP camp in Cameroon. Some of the people from Kalabalge local government, for example. They are resident in Cameroon. The governor even went there recently to pay them a visit. The governor even went to Niger Republic to share palliatives to IDPs in Niger Republic. Don't let anybody fool you. Imagine the IDPs have gone back home. They've not gone back home. Which home have they gone to? A lot of their communities are not safe. The Speaker of Borno State local government, Borno State House of Assembly, is from Guzamala local government. He has not visited his town since 2014. I'm saying it, he's probably watching me. He can't deny it. So this is the thing. But elections will take place. People will vote inside the IDP camps.
That's what I wanted to point out, Jide.
Yeah.
And they vote in mass.
Yes, in the IDP camps. Yes.
For presidential election, they returned over 1 million. For governorship election, the same thing. But when the election time, they come out, they vote in mass there. Don't get it twisted. Inside the IDP camp.
That's where they are voting.
They vote massively.
In Maiduguri alone, there are more than 20 IDP camps. Just so that you know how bad the situation is.
In Maiduguri alone?
Yes, more than 20 IDP camps.
Wow.
So this is the thing. Our people, and that was what happened in 2015. It happened again in 2019. The people voted inside IDP camps. Majority of the votes came from IDP camps.
Wow.
Not in their villages. How many of them can go home?
Wale, this situation is very, very unfortunate.
We're in a very, very terrible, very perilous times. Like Jide said, some senators don't go home. Even in the south here, some senators don't come home any longer.
Yeah, it's becoming difficult.
Kidnappers.
Yes.
If you are a senator from Oyo State, you decide to go to the Barakwa area.
Yes, they don't go
your
home.
own.
They don't ply the roads any longer.
Oh.
They only go through the airport. And with heavy security. So it's only the masses that is at the, most of the time at the mercy of this service station that we find ourselves.
Look, innocent students.
45 days.
I know they say they came to kidnap them in their sleep. They came to kidnap them in their sleep around girls. 3 a.m. So some of them had only their wrappers around them, around their bodies. So you can imagine. And the story is that even some of them are being raped. They are being raped by this
the kind of trauma, they will never forget this.
People that will
for the rest of their lives.
We start to waste them. They are raping the students. Those who are lucky, look at the Zamfara students who are kidnapped, those girls, they quickly secure their release. Those ones will be thanking their stars now. But look at these ones. And they are being beaten. Do you know how many times they beat them in a day?
How would they be beaten?
Do you know how many of them are being raped? Because this is the thing. These bandits,
they are on drugs.
They rape at will. There was a video that was said to have been shot in Zamfara. They were even, the woman was telling them that she was married, that she has a husband, and they were saying, well, if you want to leave, you better cooperate. And they raped her.
This is so sad.
You know, this is what people are going through. Nobody will wish to have his child kidnapped in this manner. Many people will prefer the children not to go to school.
Honestly.
If we can come to this point. Because there is no guarantee.
So we are talking about the number of out-of-school students. We are talking about a region that is educationally disadvantaged, because when you look at the statistics and everything, and now, with all this development, this will discourage students.
Of course.
This will discourage parents.
Of course.
If I have my words there, I can't allow them to go
You can say that again. It's such a terrible situation. To suddenly realize as a parent that you're on your own. You're on your own. The state cannot help you to rescue your child. Neither the federal nor state government has the capacity now to help you to rescue your child. The armed forces cannot help you to rescue your child.
Be calling the police,
how do you then get people to be more patriotic? How do you get people to want to die for their nation? What kind of children, what kind of Nigerians would emerge out of these people who had
love their country?
Yes.
Would they be patriotic Nigerians? Would they say we love our country, we will die for this country?
Do you think these ones will come out still loving their country? Oh, it is what your country does for you in your period of adversity that will cement your patriotism, make you feel terribly, connected to your country.
Like the man the American government came to pick
Yes.
all the way. That
They
man
came.
will be eternally grateful. He will say, God bless America.
Yes, now that's why they can die for their country. That's why they can die for their country. They came here. They took permission of from our armed forces, and they ended up securing the release. Somebody arguing with me that our soldiers were involved in the operation.
Why are they not involved in this one in Kaduna?
How? If the truth is, when one of the guys arrested was now interviewed, he now explained how it happened. Even a journalist was arguing with me that the Nigerian soldiers were involved in the operation. All they need to do is, we are coming, this is the location. You know, Nigerian soldiers can help them block some entry points to the area. But the direct, the operation itself was by Nigerian, by American troops.
If we know how to
If
do
we
it.
have the capacity, why can't we do it?
Now,
We go and rescue this
go and
people.
rescue this one.
Not even
you
in
help
Nigeria,
Americans.
Kaduna, Nigeria.
Let them
Or
come
just
and
doing propaganda on social media, impotent propaganda. You know?
All right, we move on. Now, with Nigeria still reeling from economic hardship, compounding the country's debt burden with fresh loans under whatever guise will be greeted with some disapproval. There has been mounting outcry over Senate approval of fresh $1.5 billion and 995 million euros external loans for the federal government, totaling $2.69 billion. Many experts believe that this rising debt profile will worsen things for the country. As at the last time, somebody was saying we are owing 25 trillion naira. I don't want, and if you ask anybody in government, they will say yes, the America is owing. That yes, it's not a big deal that they are using it to build infrastructure. That this government, in terms of infrastructure, has performed brilliantly well. Look at rail projects, look at the roads, a lot of landmark achievements.
There are prosperous countries that are indebted. You know, Brazil, United States, but there is a justification for it in terms of the ability of the government and the capacity to provide for the needs of the people. And then you look at the progressive, the progressive rate of the economy, social services, infrastructure. Unfortunately, in our own case, the kind of debt we have is not proportional to the economic index. I had a stopover in Ghana just last week. I was shocked. 1 CD is 87 naira. I couldn't believe it.
Ghanaian cedis.
Ghana, 1 CD. In fact, when I wanted to shake that, they didn't say that we are not interested in your money. But if you have dollars or francs, whereas years back, Nigeria was stronger. Nigerian currency is now one of the worst in Africa. So what are we talking about? From the airport in Ghana, you see the difference. You will be compared to do COVID test. The result will come out in 15 minutes. I was there. So what justification do we have? Is it security? Is it light, provision of electricity? Is it road? Is it food? What justification do we have for this kind of loans? And I think there should be a limit to just borrowing all the time. The only thing we can talk about is corruption. People are stealing, they collect the loans, you can't justify it. You know, the infrastructure we are talking about are, they are recurrent projects. They are not new infrastructure. So, and I'm afraid that I hope we are not going to sell the future of this country. There's no bad thing. I mean, it's not a bad thing getting loans from abroad, but you must be able to justify it. In the case of Nigeria, we have not been able to justify the loans we keep on collecting every year.
And more than any other administration since 1999, this administration are responsible to have collected the largest chunk of whatever debts we're incurring now. Is there any justification for this?
I don't think there is any justification for consistently taking loans. Yeah, you can take loans once in a while for critical infrastructure. There's nothing wrong about that. But we keep hearing about loans nearly all the time now. Every little thing, something as little as 2.5 billion we go to National Assembly to ask for loan. If we are desperate to fix infrastructure, then we must do something also about revenue. Because even the budget, our budget, as you can see, we are still going to take loans to implement our budget because we won't be able to find the money. We are still going to take loans. And look at the quantum of our money that goes into debt servicing. That is where you should be worried. When people say America, they are also heavily indebted, you cannot compare their GDP to ours. When people say, our debt to GDP ratio is still okay, they forget the fact that we are not doing well in the area of revenue. And that is why we can't find the money to execute a lot of the projects that we would like to execute. Even based on January figures, we suffered a decline, revenue decline of 12.8%. This is the same story that we've had to grapple with, that we are not making enough money. The economy is not doing well. When you make so much money, when production is at its best, we won't need some of the monies that we are looking for here and there. If we can find, what we need to do is find a way to energize the economy, get the economy running properly, so that revenue, we will earn sufficient revenue, and we won't have to be going to China all of the time to ask for money here and there. 80% of our bilateral debts, 80% of our bilateral debts are owed to China. 80% of our bilateral debts. We just celebrated 50 years of international relations with China. But these days, China has suddenly become our biggest creditor. Just taking loans from China at every opportunity.
Executing project for us very happily.
Nearly everything now.
Go to Abuja airport.
Export.
Built new one.
You see,
Lagos airport.
They are giving us loans through the import bank of Ghana, of China, which is run by the state and financed by the state. So lately, you see that it is from China that we've just been taking loans here and there. 80% of our present debt stock tied to China.
We have on the line an economic expert, Nnemeka Obiareri, joins us via Skype for more insight on the rising debt profile of Nigeria. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
What do you make of this situation? Right now, we are requesting for external loans to a tune of $2.69 billion.
See, borrowing in itself is not a bad idea. But the question you to ask yourself is, what am I borrowing to fund? I feel so offended when I listen to the finance minister and some of those who should know better talk about debt to GDP. And like you rightly pointed out, debt to GDP should not be the right measurement.
Yes.
What we should be looking at is debt to revenue. I will give you an example. Look at South Africa. As of today, the total debt profile of Nigeria is $74 billion. In 2015, our total debt exposure was 12 trillion naira. Today, it is 32 trillion naira. External debt as at 2015 was $10 billion. Today is $29 billion. Our GDP is about $442 billion. So let us look at South Africa. South Africa has a GDP of $203 billion. And the total loan portfolio of $157 billion. Looking at it on nominal face value, you will say that debt to GDP, South Africa is doing so badly. But it's not true. If you look at the 2020 budget performance of Nigeria, you will see clearly that our total revenue on the federal government side was about $9.2 billion. But for South Africa, it was $106 billion. you can see the clear difference. South Africa revenue to GDP is 37%. Nigeria annual revenue to GDP is 2%. Theoretically, if South Africa wants to pay off its total debt today, all other expenses held constant, South Africa can exit its total debt obligations based on the annual revenue profile in a year, 3 months. For Nigeria, it will take us 7 years of no expenses to be able to exit. So you can see clearly that our problem is not just borrowing. Our problem is what are we borrowing to fund. If you look at the recent borrowing that they want to do, $2.6 billion. Out of the $2.6 billion, only about $1 billion is being earmarked for agri-mechanized program, which is the GIP, which in this case of face value is not a bad idea if properly thought of. If time permits me, I can tell us how we can execute that loan and structure it under a private-public partnership arrangement that unlock our economy. Not the way that within the next 2 years, all of us will be singing Kumbaya. Yeah. But the other segment of the loan, which I quarrel with, is the one that are borrowing, which they want to share to the other tiers of government to help them to take care of their recurrent expenditures. Nothing beats me hollow than the way we borrow and what we use the borrowing to fund. I will give you an example. South Africa, that I use as an example, total revenue of South Africa for 2020 was $106 billion. The total money that they pay in terms of recurrent expenditure, salaries and wages of public servants, 1.3 million people, overhead and everything, was about $37 to $39 billion. Which simply means that Africa spends about 33 to 34% of their total revenue taking care of their workforce in the public sector. But let's look at Nigeria. In 2020, the total revenue that the federal government of Nigeria earned in 2020, both oil sales, tax revenue, customs collections, and other collections from the MDAs, was about $9.2 billion. But check the other leg. We spent $11.6 billion, 126% of our revenue, paying salaries and taking care of the profligacy and the waste and the corruption of less than 0.3% of our population, the civil servants and the political office holders. It is unimaginable. And I ask ourselves this question. Those who purport to governors should sit down and ask themselves, assuming Nigeria is a corporate entity, shareholders gather to raise money, and they appointed boards of directors to manage their money. At the end of the year, the board of directors will tell them, during the annual general meeting, you see, we raised all your money, we bought equipment to start production. At the end of the year, we sold all the assets, used all the money to pay salaries of the workers that we employed, and then borrowed more to pay them. Please, next year, can you permit us to borrow more to be paid salary? It does not make sense. Those are the kind of scenarios we have in Nigeria. I say it with every sense of responsibility. Our problem is not the issue of borrowing. Our problem is borrowing to fund consumption. And if you look at the water stream, the waterfall of the revenue for South Africa, you will see that $31 billion out of the $106 billion that they earned in 2020 came from personal income tax. What 22 million workforce of the South Africans paid as personal income tax is more than what Nigeria earns from tax, from oil, from everything in 3 years. And do you know why it is difficult for us here in Nigeria? In South Africa, they don't have crude oil. South Africa is not as blessed as Nigeria, that is blessed with uranium, gold, coal, cement, and whatever. The only thing that is working for the South Africans is fiscal responsibility and the kind of transparent governance framework that they put in place. Nigeria can actually ramp up the revenue. But you know what? Somebody was saying, we don't pay tax. And I asked the person one simple question. If you take out time to look at NBS statistics and look at the demographics of Nigeria, 100 million of us out of the purported 200 million population live on extreme poverty. If you look at the revenue waterfall, 92% of Nigerians, over 176 million population of Nigeria, do not earn up to 60,000 naira a month, which is less than $64. So from where we then get the money? $164. So from where we then get the money to pay the tax that will give us the kind of thing? Because we are not engaging our workforce in productive output, just like South Africans are doing, because of one single reason: the kind of Babiyala physical federalism, the kind of Babiyala economy that we are running, which is built on this faultless 1999 constitution that does not allow for resource control or for the enterprise development of the constituent units, just as we had it in 1960. Just back to the loan profile that trying to borrow. If you look at the loan breakdown, $1.6 billion will be wasted taking care of the overhead of the state. $1.1 billion is tied to agri. Now, do you know what they want to do? Under the same corrupt public sector framework, they want to borrow 1.1 billion euros to buy 10,000 tractors and accessories, which they will share to farmers. This is not the first time we've done this kind of thing. In 2 years, those tractors will disappear. They will not be well maintained. But I know that it's a very good initiative if properly structured under a transparent private-public partnership arrangement. I did a submission which I shared with some members of the National Assembly. If they could rise above their rubber stamp mode to do something right, Nigeria will get it right. I'll get them an example today. Today we have 8,809 electoral wards. And I said to them, if you look at mechanized agri, the basic equipment you need for mechanized agri within every ward can be secured with 6 million naira. And I say, if you break Nigeria into 8,809 electoral wards, and you decide to set up under a private-public arrangement with NIFAL being the controller of the fund, allow NIFAL to borrow the money, let the federal government guarantee it. I said, if we build a cluster of 8,809 mechanized agri settlements under a private arrangement, we will have created 8,000 jobs in the 8,809 electoral wards. But let me tell you what will happen. Because it's a private sector driven arrangement where these things are owned and managed by the private sector with a transparent blueprint. In each of these electoral wards, farmers will have access to mechanized equipment that can enable them to cultivate 3,000 acres of land per annum. What it simply means is that in a year, based on this arrangement, we can cultivate over 30 million acres of land, which will unlock close to over 6 trillion naira in this economy as an addition to our GDP, creating over 30 million jobs. But if we go it the way they want to go it now, by allowing the federal government to borrow and buy tractors, my brother, I tell you, they will over-invoice it, bring the tractors, share it to their cronies, and then the money will be filtered away. I have shared this proposal to the members of the National Assembly, 58 of them, on what they can do to make this work very well.
Now, some people have been saying, look, it's not a bad idea to take loans from China, that the loans from China are concessional loans with 2.5% per year interest, and that the earliest maturity date for those loans from China is September 2030. So, which means that for now we have a bit of respite. We are not under so much pressure. That is what we are told, and that the last loan to be paid up by Nigeria will be paid up in March 2038. What's your own attitude to this kind of moratorium that China has given us?
My brother, have you bothered to look at the current loan portfolio of Nigeria and the debt services framework? Currently, we spend over 80% of our national revenue servicing interest portion of the existing debt. You know, I feel so pain when people who should know better try to twist numbers, to manipulate numbers to the state they're going to vote. By the federal government, I'm an investment bank of over 21 years started. I understand this number. At today, Nigeria is spending over 80% of our annual revenue paying interest portion, just interest services of the current loan portfolio that we are carrying in our books. It's not a case of the loans are concessionary. Whether the loans are for 50 years with 10-year moratorium, the question remains, what are we doing with these loans? Currently, our GDP size is $442 billion. Nigeria, with the kind of demographics that we have, can actually grow our GDP to over $2 trillion within the next 5 years. With the right fiscal framework and constitutional framework in place, have you bothered to ask yourself this question? We said we want to diversify into agriculture. Over the last 6 years, it has been the same rhetoric, the same firebush statement. Nothing tangible has been done. And you know, this is one country that is so blessed by God with the kind of nature and resources. Yet, cursed with the worst of leadership that any nation can ever imagine. Look at Netherlands. Netherlands with an arable landmass of 14,000 square kilometers. Less than the arable landmass of Oyo or Benue State. Annually, exports over $120 billion worth of agri products. Agri technology is one of the lowest forms of technology that is available to anybody. But do you know why we are not even making headway? Nigeria as a nation can actually unlock over $50 to $100 million annually from the whole value chain of agriculture if we are sincere. But tell me the truth. Which nation thinks about diversification into agriculture when we are still operating open grazing? I have a friend in Borno, a very wonderful lady who went into farming. One night, herders went into her farm and destroyed all her investment, and she took money from people to raise those farms. It is the same story state in Benue State, in Plateau State, in Taraba, in the south and southwest. Tell me which nation will say they want to diversify into agriculture that has the potential to create so many jobs. Yes, 43 people were killed one night because they went to their farm to go and harvest their crops. Today in Nigeria, at March 31st, the food inflation rate has hit almost about 23%, the best in the history of Nigeria over the last 30 years. And we are still debating cow grazing, cow data, and whatever. It's very safe. If we are sincere about what we want to do, the first thing the federal government should be to ban open grazing and put in place policies that can help us unlock wealth from the agricultural.
I want to thank you. Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you for your passion.
See the passion. You can see the pain, the energy, the passion, the pain for this this country. And when you look at the way things are going, and you will feel pained.
Yes.
Just like the son of the Metzeler eating bones.
It's unfortunate. We need great thinkers, and we need good policies to be implemented in our country. When they talking about Netherlands, look at what Netherlands has done with agriculture. Dairy farming, for example. The best breeds of cattle, that's where you get them.
Milk.
Yeah. But the kind of agriculture that we are practicing in our country does not deliver much.
Still debating open grazing.
Yes. Who does open grazing? Who does open grazing? What has it benefited us beyond debts and more debts? Everyone, I remember when we did a program on this open grazing thing, a lot of the people that we spoke with, including some of my friends, academics in northern Nigeria, agreed that even those farmers will benefit more if their approach to grazing is changed. Look at Kano. Look at what they are doing in Kano, where the governor has created a place in Danso Forest. Yes. You can see they don't need to go around. They don't need to go and trample on anybody's farm.
Yeah.
You know, they don't need to sow pain in the hearts of innocent people who are into agriculture.
To avert any bloodshed or war.
Yes. And their women don't need to go and hawk the milk that they produce far away from where they are.
The markets.
Right there. The milk market is there. Everything that they desire will be provided inside that Danso Shea forest. That's what the old man who is the governor of Kano State has done. And other governors too should also be able to think and ask themselves, why can't I do something better than what Governor Abdullahi Ganduje has done? So this is the thing. Food inflation is the cause of the uptick in inflationary trend in our country. Food inflation is at the heart of it. When people they can't go to their farms. Why won't prices of food go up?
For the first time, we are experiencing 18%, over 18% inflation. And when you look at everything is affected. Everything.
What makes a country to prosper is not just having resources, but the creative ability of its leaders. We don't have creative leaders here. We keep on doing the same thing over and over and over for 60 years, and we're expecting different results. We are talking about agriculture. How do you want to invest in agriculture when people cannot go to farms, when you cannot deal with the issue of security?
Basic security.
So no matter the number of tractors you buy, fertilizers and all that, people cannot go to farms. They can't farm. They are not secured. So, you know, their lands have been taken over by armed groups.
Some of these insurgents, they are asking these farmers to pay them before they cultivate their crops, before they harvest.
It's not going to work. The inflation you are seeing now is because, I mean, a lot of people can no longer produce what they used to produce before.
And finally on the program, one of the major fallouts of the ongoing insurgency in Nigeria's northeast is the damage to critical infrastructure like roads, power, and communication installations. For about 3 months now, the city of Maiduguri, capital of Borno State, has been without electricity supply. In this journalist hangout weekend special, TVC News Jesse Tafida tells the story of agony of a Maiduguri resident amidst the blackouts caused by Boko Haram sabotage.
On the 25th of January 2021, suspected Boko Haram terrorists planted improvised explosive devices and brought down transmission towers along the Maiduguri-Damaturu highway that fed the state with electricity. It took staff of the Transmission Company of Nigeria more than 7 weeks to repair and restore light to the city. Barely 72 hours after the restoration of power supply, the insurgents destroyed another transmission tower, resulting in fresh total blackout. This incident has grounded businesses and caused untold hardship to residents of the state capital. Unhealthy doses of carbon monoxide and noise from generators are now constant companions of the people. On a stretch of about 2 kilometers, shops are locked up for many reasons, but chief among them is lack of power supply. Business owners say life has become increasingly unbearable as electricity, which boosts businesses and offers comfort, is unavailable.
It's affecting our business a lot because due to the scarcity, we are about 3 months now, there's no light in Maiduguri. So we are suffering buying a fuel instead of getting light to empower some of our generator, to refill our refrigerators, to attend to customer quickly the way it's supposed to be, but we couldn't get it the way as fast as they wanted it. And after all, we are spending money here on diesel. So even to get a water in our car wash shares too is something else. At least sometimes, even only in a refrigerator, I can get nothing less than 5,000, 10,000 naira a daily. But now you have to spend more than 5,000 naira, and yet you cannot get the impact what you're supposed to get from the NEPA. Because generator cannot power refrigerator and AC the way it's supposed to.
And lack of electricity really affect my business because for the past 3 to 4 months, we haven't no light. And like before, we used to get light, but since there is no light, like me, I always use generator. And for now, I have to buy fuel of 1,000 daily fuel of 1,000. So there is no option. Like before, we used to buy pure water for 5 naira, but now it's 10 naira. And in my shop now, we are 4 in numbers. So I used to buy pure water of 100 naira. Before it's 50 naira, because one can take 2 sachets. So before, when we buy 50 naira on, all of us can manage it, but now it's 100 naira.
Scarcity of the light is affecting my business because majority of the time we normally use, based on our work, we use the light to do our works, and the fuel, we are even getting scarcity of fuel, and without it we can't work. So please, we people should plead with the government for us. They should repair the light for us because it's really affecting us. Every day I usually buy like 2 gallons of fuel.
This situation is becoming unbearable. As you can see, now there is no light and my generator develops a lot of problem. I spend about 6,000 every day on fuel, and at the end of the day you find out that the profit is nothing to write home about. If the government don't repair our electricity, we will be forced to shut down our business and life will be hard in Maiduguri.
For all this, the lack of power supply has not only disrupted businesses, but also precipitated water scarcity.
Normally my work, I used to work at home and have electricity so that I'll be able to charge my system and phones, to be able to cover my work long schedule. But because there's outage of power supply, I have not been able to work in full capacity. The government should look for a lasting solution, or like to restore the power supply back to the state, not having a temporary solution like what happened last time. The light was just back in 2-3 days and we were back to business.
Actually, electricity is very, very vital for our businesses, most especially business centers like these are computer centers. Here we have had a lot of difficulties in our work, especially photocopying works and other few things we have to do. And now, let me say, like the diesel itself is very, very hard. And then if only you could lay your hands on it, it's very, very expensive now. For example, I find it very, very difficult to charge my phone. And if I have a chance to do so, then it's very, very expensive. The government itself has to provide electricity for us right now to enable our businesses.
In heat season, normally I used to have lights, maybe 10 hours in a day or 12 hours in a day. But now I fuel my generator and maybe for 4 hours or 3 hours, and we are pleading the government to please intervene, to look for a way to supply this electricity, to look for a way to help the people, the masses, so that they can be able to enjoy this electricity supply.
We in Maiduguri are not enjoying anything. You can imagine that for 10 weeks straight, there's no power supply. Getting water now has become a problem for us because one has to pay 350 to get Memoya, and we want the government as a matter of urgency to restore our light, please.
As the state continues to grapple with lack of public power supply, what is of greater concern is the fact that so little appears to be ongoing to salvage the situation. Residents of Maiduguri are more concerned about the impact of the lack of electricity supply on their livelihood, especially in this holy month of Ramadan. They want the government to put security measures in place to ensure that such crippling sabotage of public electricity becomes a thing of the past. Jesse Tafida, TVC News, Maiduguri.
Jesse described it well, crippling sabotage of public facility. You can imagine a scenario, no power, no water. Judy, that is hell. Apart from the insurgency facing them there.
Yeah, it's painful, and for someone born in the north, who knows how hot the north can be at this time of the year, I can only imagine what my friends are going through in Borno State. It's terrible what Boko Haram is doing to people. It's just painful. I personally went to the Minister of Power, Engineer Salem Maman. I asked him, when are you going to fix electricity in Borno State. And he told me that they were almost completing the repairs.
This repair work?
Yes. He told me that, yes, that the people were attacked while doing the work, but that they will soon finish. As soon as they finished, these good-for-nothing Boko Haram people went to sabotage the transmission lines again and plunge the city into fresh darkness.
Enemy of the state.
I don't understand. This is the worst period that people should live without light. Especially in Maiduguri, reputed for its humidity. In some parts of the north and even not as hot as Maiduguri. But to do this to people in this difficult time, they are going through, as again, they are going through fasting. So it makes the pain much, much unbearable. Just as Jesse said in his closing remarks, government has to make it impossible for these guys to sabotage the state in this manner. They know where those transmission lines are. Those transmission lines have to be protected to ensure that they don't go there to destroy them once again.
24 hours, Wally.
It's a very dangerous trend, because what Boko Haram has resorted to now is economic sabotage. The terrorist group wants to cripple the state. From the interviews we have seen, you can see that there is a very strong link between electricity supply and livelihood. And what Boko Haram is doing is going to affect healthcare facilities. It will affect education. It will affect communication. It will affect governance. So, and of course, it's easy for them because they are no longer targeting soldiers now. They are targeting vulnerable infrastructure. So this, it means that another responsibility is expected from Nigerian soldiers. Is going to overstress the security apparatus, because that means they have to protect all this infrastructure. It will also affect communication in that state. So I think we have to, it's a challenge that we have to live up to. We have to ensure that people have regular supply of electricity. If they don't have it, it's the best way to cripple the state, and we should never allow that to happen.
You're not forgetting that these guys, they deliberately targeted some base stations, telecom base stations, that majority of the areas in Borno State now, they don't have,
outside the state capital.
Yes, they don't have a network.
It's part of what they do. Once they attack a community, they go for the base station, because they don't want you communicating easily, especially while their operation is on. So once you travel outside of Maiduguri, after a few kilometers, you just see that there's no network on your
link to other base stations.
So for some of my friends who work with the governor, once they travel, I can't reach them. Maybe the governor is going to Baga, I can't reach them. It's that bad, because they've destroyed base stations across the state. They are so destructive that they can get into a community and no single house will be standing. I've seen Boko Haram, even these transmission lines. If you go to, I don't know whether it's a lot better now. I remember in 2016 when I visited Konduga, you will see clearly, even public water supply, the overhead tanks, you see bullet holes in them. They fire at them so that the tank will be useless. And even the transmission lines, they destroy. They destroy the transmission lines so that the people will be in darkness. And darkness will allow them to carry out their nefarious activities, So this is the thing. Even roads, they damage the road so that every vehicles that the army uses, will not be able to move freely on the road. All kinds of sabotage that these guys are involved in. But the challenge is for us to be able to stand up to them, take 2 steps even before they take one.
Preempt them.
The places where they are constantly targeting to carry out this sabotage, we must protect those places. We must protect public infrastructure. Especially in the state. I know it's on the outskirts of the city, on the Maiduguri-Damaturu highway. that they've done this. But we've got to protect that area. The governor has been talking about the need to protect that Maiduguri-Damaturu highway, because a lot of the kidnapping in Borno State happened on that highway. A lot of the killing of innocent people. Remember the attack on Auno, where dozens of people were burned down in their right inside the vehicles that they were traveling in. So we need to increase security in those areas so that they will not be able to carry out their sabotage in those areas.
I have this caller from Imo State. Thank you for joining us.
Are you happy Sunday? Babajide, happy Sunday, sir.
Hope you are safe. Hope you are safe. Are you not worried?
Yes, I mean, sir. I actually reported the last time when they broke the correctional service. But we're safe. But we're just sleeping with our two eyes open, not just one. We now sleep with two eyes open because it's a terrible situation we now face in Imo State as we speak. Well, it is the whole the insecurity in Nigeria is becoming a total embarrassment to everybody. And I think it should be giving Mr. President sleepless night as we citizens, as we can't sleep anymore. This issue, power is wealth. And when power is affected, every other sector of the economy is affected drastically and adversely. Like Babajide and the other man said, let us find a way. When we push these people, let us put security men there, because when we have some standing sufficient men on ground, we will not see these guys coming back again, because now they always but when they come at night, it's a free flow for them because there will be no light to see them. I think we need to expedite action. And I want to make a suggestion. It is obvious that this insurgency has overwhelmed us. Why don't we employ the services of foreigners, foreign aid? No matter what is going to cost us, it is not worth, even if they said we should bring $1 billion, it is not worth the life of one Nigeria. Jonathan said the ambition is not worth anything. So please, whatever Mr. President should do to put an end to this insurgency, let it be done.
Thank you so much. In fact, in all this, we have attack on humanitarian workers. We also we need help in that perspective, because when people from the United Nations, that volunteers coming into the country to do, but these people are so devilish. They still attack them.
Nurses, kidnapped, taken away. They just don't want any good thing in that part of the country, and it's so unfortunate. It shows how anti-civilization these elements are. We need to. We hope we can defeat them, because if we don't do that, I think history will be unkind to us. Buhari made security one of his cardinal, focal points. Unfortunately, the security has been his albatross. It's very unfortunate.
Julie,
no matter what they are achieving, the security is rubbishing everything. I was discussing with someone in the works ministry, and I said, look, we have a minister who is doing well. Fashola has made Nigerians proud, made Lagosians proud, made Nigerians proud. But every time, people will talk about this insecurity. People will talk. So the insecurity has kind of overshadowed some of the good things that government is doing.
Nobody is even looking at
this. Is a government that will ultimately deliver the second Niger bridge. It's going to complete this road here, Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, that Obasanjo didn't do anything about. And there are, look at the
train everywhere, Warri Takpe,
even so many across the country. Yes. Across the country, a lot of this, but everyone is talking about insecurity, because it is the person who is alive that can even enjoy the infrastructure that you are providing. So it has to be, it is the biggest problem that the government faces, and it is the problem that should attract the greatest attention of the government.
Should we get help now that Idris Deby is dead, and we know that, look, things might change by the influx of light arms and, from these war-torn countries around us?
Is when the president took office, he traveled to meet to Chad. It was one of the first places that he visited, because he wanted the multinational joint task force to be strong and to help us address the problem along that Lake Chad corridor. Thankfully, Chad has remained a good friend of Nigeria in helping us to battle Boko Haram. There have been occasions when they came into Nigeria, especially the Monguno area, and helped us to mop up remnants of Boko Haram in those places. My only hope is that Kaka, the son of Idris Deby, will prove strong like his dad and retain the policies of the no-nonsense attitude of his father against terrorism. He too will sustain it. That is our best bet, because when you look around, all those countries sharing borders with Chad, they are all failed countries. You see Sudan there, you see Central African Republic, you see even Niger, you see Mali. All of these countries, they are just
Libya by extension,
and a lot. Even Burkina Faso, northern Burkina Faso, even Mauritania, all kinds of problems in those countries. If they manage to breach the borders of Chad, Nigeria will be their destination, because this is the big market for illicit weapons. So we have to hope. And I think our government has to engage with the new leadership in Chad so that they can sustain the momentum. Otherwise, it will be bad news for everyone.
All right. I want to thank you, Wale Adeoye. Thank you. Thank you for your contribution. The master himself, it's been 120 minutes of very in-depth analysis, and our contributors, that's Larry Suraj, Nemeka Obiareri, spoke passionately, and Henry Obulio was meant to join us. I think it was a network issue, but
we'll have him another time.
Yes, so that's on Sunday. Jide is always thinking ahead. That okay, before next Sunday, it takes days for him to plan out what will happen on Sunday. So Sunday is now like our priority to give our viewers.
It is.
That's
it's a big bonus for you.
So 120 give you value. So the important thing there is that people are asking me, you can't get it on our terrestrial station. Just come to on DSTV 418 or GoTV 45 or any of our platforms, but not our terrestrial platform. We have enough time here to be able to dissect everything in 2 hours. And that's our offering today. Join us tomorrow for the regular episode of Journalist Hangout by 5 p.m. And we're on YouTube, youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I'm Ayodele Ozubaku. See you tomorrow, and God bless Nigeria.